Hey guys, welcome back. So today is going to be all my very best tips for oily skin. I personally have had oily skin the majority of my life, so I know what a struggle it can be, especially in the warmer months. I've tried and tested all of these and they really work for me, so I hope that they can help anybody else dealing with oily skin too. If you have any tips, then please leave them in the comments, help us all out. I would much appreciate it. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. Firstly, I just want to premise this by saying that oily skin is not necessarily a bad thing. Since I did a course of Accutane a few years ago, it's really changed the oil production in my skin. I went from having really oily skin to now almost normal to kind of dry skin, to be honest with you. So I've been at both ends of the spectrum, so I know the struggle for both. But today is just going to be my tips for reducing oil production because, yeah, like I said, can be a bit of a struggle. So first tip from me is the emergency blotting, because we've all been there. We're maybe at work or on a night out and the oil production has really amped up and it's kind of leaving that kind of film of like oil and grease and you just feel a bit shiny. So my favorite tip is just to get a piece of tissue paper, split it and just dab your skin, like hold the tissue paper, the really thin bit, on your face and it will just start to soak up that oil. I've done this tip about 1,000,000 times in my life. I still do it to this day when I've applied maybe too much product, like too much SPF, which can leave you feeling quite oily. So this tip definitely works. I would really recommend it. Of course, it's not going to stop the internal oil production, but if you're out or at an event and you don't want to look as shiny as you do, then yes, that is my favorite go-to emergency tip. Also quite satisfying when you remove the tissue and you can see how much oil you've actually soaked up. My next tip is remembering to actually moisturize, because I know it can feel a bit counterproductive if you're producing lots of oil, but actually moisturizing really balances the skin out and definitely has improved my oily skin. Like the texture of it really improved when I started to actually moisturize. And yeah, I would say really avoid things with like heavy oils in there. I mean, everyone's skin's different, but I always find for me that if I'm using products with lots of heavy oils in there, it is definitely going to increase the oil production in my skin as well. It kind of just leaves like a layer of something on your skin and you kind of feel the oil build up a lot more throughout the day, which also leads me to my next point, which is to moisturize damp skin. And I feel like this is like commonly known amongst people with dry skin because this is how I learned this tip, but I've also realized how much it benefits my skin when it's oily if I've done the same. I always do this now and it's really helped balance my skin. So that is when you get out of the shower or you've cleansed your face, is to avoid getting a towel and towel drying your face and basically stripping your skin of all the moisture again. You kind of want to leave it to air dry, maybe so that it's almost just before it gets dry, like damp skin, and that is when you go in with your moisturizer. And this has helped me so much, guys. Like this one tip will really be a game changer if you're not doing it already. My next tip, and this came from taking a supplement for a really long time and realizing that one of the ingredients was actually probably causing more oil production than I imagined. And when I took this supplement out, it really helped my skin. So I was taking a hair and nail supplement, basically because I wanted to have my hair grow really thick and strong as well as my nails for obvious reasons, and thought it would benefit my skin too. And that ingredient is biotin. So if you're taking a supplement like this, have a look through the ingredients and see if biotin is listed. Once I removed biotin from my supplement regime, it really was a game changer. So I feel like the idea is that biotin will help increase like the healthy oil production so that your hair can grow strong and obviously your nails as well. But in turn, if you're an oily skin person, like if you produce a lot of oil anyway, I think it just amps it up. So yeah, definitely would recommend removing that and seeing how your skin does. Next up is one that I was actually doing the opposite of for years and definitely didn't help. I know it feels kind of counterproductive, but avoid using things that really strip your skin. For ages, I was using like really harsh toners, harsh face washes, and you kind of had that like squeaky kind of feeling on your skin. Even if you have oily skin, I promise you this is not the way forward. It really doesn't balance your skin very well and your oil production can just go through the roof. So I would recommend treating your skin as if it's sensitive, like really gentle skincare. The minute I started doing this, even before my acne really broke out back in like 2015, I'd really started to help my skin in terms of the oil production a year or so before that. And by doing this, honestly, it really was a game changer. I didn't need to blot half as much. And I was just using really gentle skincare like Cetaphil, like a really gentle face wash, a really gentle moisturizer, and things really started to improve. So yeah, please, if you're using ingredients that have like alcohol in there, like remove those and see how your skin does. Next up is kind of a controversial one because I definitely don't recommend taking this vitamin in high doses. doses because I tried it for a while and it really helped my skin decrease the oil, but I'm not sure it's great long term. And that is a supplement called vitamin B5 pantothenic acid. Now I remember years ago watching a few girls on YouTube try this out and being like, whoa, okay, this stuff really works, but I don't know if it's actually great for your health. So people were mega dosing on this stuff, like taking bottles of it, which I also tried for a really short period of time. It led to all kind of other like weird side effects, so don't do that. But if you just take this supplement like maybe a few times a week, maybe you want to take it every day on a really small dose, it really does help regulate your sebum. So yeah, vitamin B5, I'm not entirely sure of the science behind it. If anyone knows, please leave me a comment. But yeah, it definitely helped me. And I feel like if you're going to be doing this, just make sure that you're tracking any other symptoms. Like if you are starting to find that your hair's getting quite brittle, because it is quite common if you're taking too much of one specific vitamin, you're kind of outbalancing the other ones too. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is something I recommend in terms of a tip, but certainly worth looking into because it did really work for me. Like it did reduce the oil production. But again, never make a dose on vitamins, never a good idea. So my next tip, and this is a makeup one. And yes, I know I'm not a makeup expert, but this really, really helped me. And this is to actually apply powder before foundation, which feels really backwards, I know, but trust me, it really works. By actually absorbing some of the oil production before you've even applied your foundation and then applying a little bit of powder over the top, you find that you've got a much more kind of like healthy, dewy look, as opposed to just looking super matte, which I definitely did for years and years and years. But actually doing it this way, it kind of controls the sebum whilst not looking like you're really kind of like matte and powdery. Definitely would recommend this tip. I also really avoided applying foundation where I was oily. I just found that when you have oil mixed with foundation, it just looks even worse in my opinion. For me, my skin, it just looked 10 times shinier. So I would avoid actually applying foundation kind of like to the T-zone, like my forehead, for example. Like I never really applied foundation to my forehead. I might just use like a tiny bit of whatever was left on the brush on there. But yeah, just a really, really thin layer in your oilier areas. And then you can just build up that coverage in places that you really need it, which might be, for me, like around the eye area, around the chin area if I was breaking out, or like on the cheeks. So yeah, just apply a thin layer and see how your oil production does. It might be that you have the same amount of oil being produced, it's just it's not mixing with as much product to look even shinier. So my next tip is dealing with oil production internally. And it is commonly known that androgens are responsible for lots of the imbalances in oil production, like the amped up oil production that can happen. So by balancing your androgens or reducing them even, this can really, really help your skin. So a couple of ways you can do this that are on the more kind of natural approach that have definitely helped me is licorice root and spearmint. I used to drink about 2 or 3 cups of spearmint tea a day, and quite honestly, I was loving that until I actually started to suffer from acid reflux, which was not because of the spearmint tea. I just find that the spearmint doesn't go down as well at the moment until I have this sort of situation fixed. But I would recommend definitely drinking spearmint tea if you are worried about your oil production or you want to decrease it for whatever reason. Yeah, look into that because it can really affect your androgens, your male hormones, and help to regulate those. Same goes for licorice root. I've taken that in tablet form and also in like a tincture, like supplement. I haven't noticed as big a change as I do with spearmint, but definitely over time I can really start to feel the effects of that. I would go easy with this stuff because it can be super effective to the point where I think I started to feel like my heart rate was changing, all kinds of weird things. I don't know if I was just being really hypersensitive to it, but yeah, go easy with that stuff, but it can really, really help. So I couldn't make a video like this without including blotting papers because of course, if you have oily skin, these are kind of an essential. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you some of my favorites on screen right now. My favorites are 2, one by Boots and one by Superdrug. Both of them are so great, honestly. They are my favorite ones. I've tried more expensive ones where I spent almost like 10, 15 pounds on before. They are not worth it, guys. They're just bits of paper. I promise you, go for the cheaper alternatives, try a few out. These are 100% my favorites. I love them. Some of them leave like, kind of almost like a powder to your skin, which is great because it kind of keeps absorbing the oil throughout the day and you only need to use like 1 or 2. Another internal supplement that you can take is vitamin A, but I would really go easy with this one as well because you don't want to take too much vitamin A. You really want to supplement safely. I don't really think many people recommend supplementing with vitamin A because it can lead to things like vitamin A toxicity. So you can do this very, very gently by just taking 1 capsule a day. I have tried this in the past, but it did leave me with quite severe headaches. So yeah, really be aware of any kind of side effects that are caused by supplements because you might think you're being super healthy taking them, but they can cause adverse effects. For me, I think it was because I'd already been on Accutane and I felt like the vitamin A had already kind of built up in my system. But if you've not been on Accutane, then definitely try this out. Go easy and see how you do. Alternatively, and I would definitely recommend this first, is using food to actually increase your vitamin A. So things like organ meat, beef, chicken, eggs, they all have a high amount of vitamin A. You can also obviously get this from vegetables as well, but you need to eat quite a bit more. But things like sweet potato, carrots, they all have vitamin A in them as well. Leafy greens. So yeah, upping your intake of those things can really, really help oil production too. But like I said, you probably need to eat quite a fair amount of this to really actually see the benefits. But yeah, including this in your weekly meal plans will absolutely help. It's also really worth noting that it could be your environment that's causing your skin to be a lot oilier. I know for myself, definitely in the summertime, my skin is so much more oily than it ever is in the winter, and that's always been the case. So if the climate that you're living in is super humid, then obviously bear this in mind as well, because it might not be something that's going on like internally or anything that you're applying to your skin. It could just be, this is the climate and this is how your skin needs to be in these conditions. So yeah, please don't panic. I think doing all these things will help to maintain your skin and have like a healthy amount of oil, but honestly, don't panic if the actual humidity is causing your skin to be a lot oilier. So now that you've taken all these tips into consideration and you've reduced the oil in your skin, you've regulated your sebum production, you might be wondering what products are actually going to support this, like your gentle skincare. And for me, I've had really great success with using brands like Cetaphil. I've done an entire review on that line, like the cleanser that I used for years. So if you're interested, click the box below and I will see you over there. Thanks guys. The Gentle Skin Cleanser I've been using for nearly 6 years, and the moisture cream I've been using for nearly 2. So I feel like I'm in the position to give you guys a really honest and insightful review of Cetaphil. Firstly guys, please can you help me out and let me know what your favorite Cetaphil product is, because I know that they've now released like tons of new products that I'm yet to